Hello. Welcome to Drainism episode 3. Today, we're going to be looking at Rainworld. Now, I debated whether I should do Rainworld or not, since it's not, the track list isn't official, right? The set list of songs is not official. It's just guesses, best guesses that we've had from, posts Blade has made, like on Instagram or tweets and stuff like that. So I was thinking, I want to do his entire discography, so I really should cover every project that he's done in order. So I kind of screwed up by first doing Glue, then Ever Since. Well, it depends on how official you think Rainworld is. I happen to think a lot of the songs in this album, while they may not flow together as well as some of his more, cohesive projects like, Glue, Exeter, those all, share like a theme or motif. I guess you could say Rainworld does as well, but it's just that it's more, I view a lot of these songs as just singles, right? Rather than being a part of an album, Rainworld. Anyways, I don't want this video to be as long as the last one, although I guess I don't know how long the videos are going to be until I'm done recording them. But without further ado, let's get into Rainworld. Now, the first track we have is Reborn, right? And how does this start? Snipers on the roof, please, kill me if I lose. My trust can't be abused, barbed wire around my group. Immediately, we're getting martyr imagery, I believe. And we're getting the idea that there's a lot of weight on Blade's shoulders, because he, in his music, or what he's said, he kind of fulfills that role of martyr, and barbed wire around my group. Blade mentions barbed wire a lot in his songs, and sometimes in, I believe, Hero of My Story 3 style, he says he's got a crown of barbed wire, right? So barbed wire is something that's man-made, and if you were to take it in a spiritual context, it would be the modern version of thorns, right? Thorns that surround a garden, for example. You would see barbed wire as the modern day equivalent of that. So, and there's a lot of pressure on him. He says, my happiness is not real, but I'm happy though. Again, if you're just viewing Blade one-dimensionally, you're why is he literally contradicting himself in a single line? My happiness is not real, but I'm happy though. It's because happiness is complicated, right? We like to put things in black and white, oh, we're always 100% happy or we're always 100% sad. He's saying that his happiness is not real, but he's still happy. I hold on to my shield, never let it go. This is the idea of shield gang, right? So Blade is trying to, this, I don't want to say ideology, but this spiritual way of thinking that we're going on the journey through of his music, right? It creates a shield, okay, against evil. So you have to start thinking about Blade and his lyrics as pure, a lot of this is pure art, pure symbolism, pure allegory, right? No spiders in my fruit. Well, what does this mean? I think this is really interesting because this is on his unreleased Rainworld, but it's his very first project. And we already see signs that he's going to incorporate these symbols in later works, like spiders. There's, of course, the album called Spider. Fruit, Blade has a song called Apple. And Blade also has alludes to fruit in, what am I trying to say? Reality surf, right? So fruit is a very important image, and I believe, in my opinion, he's specifically referring to the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. So when he says there's no spiders in my fruit, that means there's nothing corrupting that knowledge, okay? He just has the pure knowledge of good and evil. There's no spiders or there's no insects trying to eat or change that knowledge or warp it in any way, right? I know how the knife feels, I will let you go. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but we talked about blade, like a blade being a double-edged sword, right? There's a double-edged sword in like a literary meaning means like a good and bad thing can happen, right? Um, so that's the nature of a double-edged sword. That's the nature of a blade, and blade knows how that feels to kind of be on both sides of a particular argument or belief or conversation. But then he says, I want to be reborn in your arms. Now, if you're viewing Blade's music as like more of him like with a relationship with another human being, like a girl perhaps, like that makes sense on that level, because it's like, oh, I want to be, you know, my lover, I want you to make me pure again, I want to be reborn in your arms. Now, if you're thinking about it from a spiritual context, again, both of these contexts are neither fully 100% or incorrect, fully 100% correct or incorrect, sorry. It's just how you want to view the art. The art can have several meanings. Whichever one vibes with you, you know, that might be what you keep with you. I like to think being reborn in your arms is like being, it's kind of like what they would say is like a born again Christian, you know? But Blade's not Christian, so. But he's busting down the cross. I've forgotten how it feels to be touched. I still lust, but my heart's giving up. So this is interesting because we hear lines, you know, like in who goes there, he says like no touching, I find it disgusting. And again, it's like this very ethereal like language, like that it's kind of going with the motif that like physical existence is nowhere near spiritual existence, if that makes sense, right? But specifically with that line, he says, I've forgotten how it feels to be touched, you know? And that insinuates that he's been touched before. Now, again, like he doesn't specify whether it's physical touch or like a spiritual touch or like a magic touch, but he knows what it's like, but he's forgotten it, right? And this kind of, you know, it makes you wonder, you know, when he references the no spiders in my fruit, like, you know, what is he talking about there? I think this song is really good, but personally it's hard for me to unpack because I think there's like loads of symbolism and imagery in every line. I blow kush to the stars that's above. I feel down, but my eyes looking up. If I fall, it's my fault. So, Blade is saying that he's taken the knowledge of good and evil, right? It's pure, no spiders have touched it. But, so at this point, since he has that knowledge, if he goes to the dark side, you know, if you want to use Star Wars language, if he goes into the evil, it's his fault if he falls. In Hennessy and Sailor Moon, I remember he says, they won't see me fall, they won't see me fall. So there, that's already like, that song came out way after Rainworld, supposedly, when Rainworld was supposedly created. That song came later. This is the beginning. If I fall, it's my fault. He's still recognizing that just because I have the knowledge, I have the fruit, it's not just a one-way ticket to paradise or happiness. If he falls, it's his fault because he has the knowledge, right? I will see my friends when it's dark. This is interesting to me, and this is something that has even happened like in my personal life, but it's like your friends only come to you when it's their like darkest moments, you know? And so Blade is kind of sitting there in the dark, and that's where his true friends are. His true friends are going through the darkness with him. His true friends aren't only there for the happy times, the light times, the joyous times. They're also there in the struggle. And so he finishes the song by saying, I want to ascend and dissolve. I want to go towards the light, go towards heaven, paradise, whatever you want to call it, and then dissolve. I want to be detached from this physical existence that we're kind of imprisoned in. You know, Echo 2K says in Mirage, in this body now I'm a prisoner. Right? Anyways, and Echo 2K is in this music video. So I think that's kind of cool. Oh Lord, we're at 11 minutes and I only talked about Reborn. Oh boy. Oh no. I have kind of a ghetto setup for footage. Anyways, let's go into Ghost Hands. I'm on trees like islands. So, again, Blade is again using this vague imagery, but it's like vague and it's not. If you're looking at it through a specific context, and now I will admit, what context you choose to look at Blade's lyrics like could vary and varies from person to person. I have like my own perspective, you know, on the context that Blade's using, but even some of my friends who have listened to Blade probably longer than I have, like, say, no, like, he's not meaning it in that way. I think Blade purposely keeps his lyrics and imagery semi-vague so that you can interpret it in multiple ways, right? So when I'm doing, like, an analysis or review, you have to understand that my personal bias is coming in, blah, 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 yada, yada. I'm on trees like islands. Islands are an important imagery, or an important, they're important as an allegory because it's like a place that's separated from society. And so when he says, I'm on trees like islands, I like to interpret it as I'm on trees, being cannabis, weed, devil's lettuce, like islands. Because I smoke, I'm able to disconnect from the real world. And I get to be on this island. Now later he expands upon this imagery with his project Trash Island. Well, not a project Trash Island, sorry. I believe it's DNG. But they mention Trash Island, especially like he's always talking about islands, trash islands, okay? And that imagery is important because it's like he found his place separate from the real world society. He's on this island, but it's full of all his trash, all of his baggage, all of his wrongdoing, sins, whatever you want to call it, right? But here he's not saying that. He's just saying I'm on trees like islands. So he's like giving us the pathway to like expand upon this type of imagery. If you catch my drift. You could not catch my drift, and that's totally fine. You know, this video is unedited, unscripted, just me speaking my thoughts, being, you know, a Blade fan, GTB fan for, wow, almost over 10 years at this point. I'm bleeding, no violence. So he's saying, again, I'm bleeding like I'm hurt, you know, but I've never done any violence, you know. So it's again like, it's kind of like showing like sticks and stones um, can break your bones, and words and words can be used to break people as well, right? He's bleeding, but it's just from this internal mental turmoil that he's going through as he's going through this phase of life, right? It's the sorrow, the pain he feels is so sad. There's no violence involved, but he's bleeding, right? Um, Poison, doors open, got ghost hands. This is interesting. I guess I haven't really thought about this. If poison, I believe he's referring to the cannabis, or it could be just drugs in general. It's probably more just drugs in general. Doors open, but I got ghost hands, right? So he gets the door to enlightenment opens for him, right? Like an insect eat everything on Sunset and Silver City. He says, "Third eye open, I can see everything." So it's like before the knowledge was closed off from him, but now the door's opened, right? And he's experiencing this knowledge of the darkest darks, the lightest lights, and everything in between. But he's got ghost hands. So to me, this means like he can't actually, every time he tries to interact with that knowledge, once the door's open, he comes in, he tries to interact, his hands just go through it. Like he can't manipulate it or do anything about it, right? But he's still a free agent who can move, right? He can move, he just can't interact with what he's being shown. I don't know if that fully makes sense to y'all. These lyrics are very, very, um, they're very powerful, but it can also be confusing to connect it to, something that's cohesive. King of the material realm. So he's saying that he doesn't even like being in this body. He doesn't like touching. He doesn't like the physical of anything. But because he understands that so much, and he understands the way that we interact with the world so much, he's almost the king of the material realm. Like he's the only one that kind of sees what this is, and some of the great, like, philosophers or whatever say that, like, consciousness could be an illusion. So maybe perhaps he's like referring to that as just like, hey, I am the king of this untouchable stuff or touchable stuff. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Put you underwater, you see your reflection. I think of the Greek myth Narcissus, that guy who saw his beautiful self in the pool and then died because he literally was just so obsessed staring at himself the whole time, right? And so, but what Blade's saying is kind of a perversion of that. He's grabbing you and he's dunking your head in the water, right? Send him to the kingdom in the sky, make him live there. Pulling up on the 12 plus 12 plus 12. Now, I actually don't remember hearing this specific lyric, but it's really interesting because 12 is an important number in a scriptural context because you got the 12 apostles of Jesus. But if you add 12, 12, and 12, 3 times 12, you get 12, 24, 36. 3 and 6. 6 upside down's a 9. Okay, so Blade is showing, pay attention to the number. Whenever Blade mentions a number in his lyrics, just pay attention, because it's normally going to be a 3, a 6, or a 9. or a 2. You know, like he's very into numbers and just throwing them out there, you know, and it's very particular numbers. Anyways, um, soft hair. Everything is warm when you live in a freezer. You know, this is kind of like this is kind of like C.S. Lewis. You can't call a line straight unless you know what a crooked line is. You can't have good without evil. Yada yada. Everything is warm when you live in a freezer. It's all about perspective, right? The grass is always greener on the other side. God is forgiving. This one you don't even need to interpret. It's just like, okay. So Blade is in tune with a higher power, but Blade is a leader, right? He just said he's the king of the material realm. So he's starting to play with this idea that he's chosen by God for this role, right? In the next verse, he kind of talks about how he says, I'm protected from evil. It's in the air. Be my barrier, right? So he's talking about Shield Gang, right? Using this knowledge of good and evil to protect yourself from the evil, right? But it's like you have to engage with the evil in order to be able to protect yourself from it. It's very like it's very interesting ideas that he's throwing in here. And again, like I'm not saying that everything I'm saying about this song or this lyric is 100% right. I'm just saying I really just want people to get more explore more into the imagery, okay? Because people say, "Oh yeah, Blade sounds cool because it's like, you know, dope trappy cloud rap, you know, beats, and he's got the auto tune, he's really good at flows, and all these things are true, you know, and that's why I love Blade, you know, that's how I got into Blade. But what kept me like still listening to Blade is being able to re-listen to his lyrics and get a new meaning every time, right? Or get a new idea every time, right? And so then it ends with poison, doors open, God goes hands. Again, he's trying to reach us, you know. He's trying to give us this knowledge, which could be considered poison, or it's drugs, whichever context. The doors are opened, so he's right there. We can see Blade, but the second he tries to interact with us, goes hands. Right? Anyways, great song. And now we'll move on to the third song, Cash in My Jeans. This is a really cool song, which I hope would officially get released, but we'll just have to wait for Rainworld to get released, I guess. Hopefully that happens soon. But let's kind of dive in. Always down but never doubt. Okay. So Blade, I think at this point he's already reached the enlightenment, you know, that he's kind of been talking about. The doors are open, you know. He's got the fruit. It's the spiders aren't messing with it. He's got the knowledge of good and evil. But so there's no way he can doubt it. But the realization that good and evil are like intertwined like this is depressing, to say the least. We like to think of them as entirely two separate black and white concepts, like good and evil. But what Blade's saying is that you can't have one without the other, right? You can't know what a straight line is without a crooked line, right? So that is just, it's going to make you down, you know, and that's why he calls it a rain world, you know, is because, like, rain is this beautiful thing, you know, when you're inside and you're sipping on your coffee and you're looking out the window and you see the rain, it's like very cozy, you know, but a bunch of rain causes floods. A bunch of rain causes damage, you know. Too much rain could kill some plants, you know. It's not like rain is good and it's not like rain is bad. It's both. It's all the above. I really should get a better setup for my videos. Anyways. Waterfall, Rainworld, peace in the streets, nights when I sleep, I got enemies. Right? There's people who don't like this message that he's trying to say. But he doesn't care because he's got cash in my jeans. Right? And this is funny just when you compare it to the first two, you know, where he's talking about like disconnecting from the material side of things, but he's got cash in his jeans, right? Not a credit card. He's got physical money in his physical pants. So I just think that's kind of interesting to think about. I walk into a tunnel. I go back. It was a puzzle. Water without fire because they treat me like a spider. So this is interesting because before he was saying there's no spiders in his fruit, right? There's no one corrupting that knowledge of good and evil except for perhaps him. Maybe Blade is saying, what if I'm the one who is manipulating this idea? And I'd still have to think about that, but I think it's something to definitely think about. Like, what does Blade think his role is as the king of a material world? And when we go into Spider, he has a song called King Nothing, which is, I'm not the king of anything, okay? So he even goes through a journey of that, right? First he's the king of the material world, then he's the king of nothing, the complete opposite, right? And peace in the streets. We need to have peace in the streets, guys. Okay? We all need to chill. Doesn't need to be any more fighting. Into dust. I'm gonna bleed in the club. I got weed in my lungs. I don't need any love. I can't feel when I'm drugged. So this message, I think, is more straightforward, more clear, which is why it's one of his most popular songs, right? Regardless of the fact that it has an amazing beat and it sounds great. I can't feel when I'm drugged. So he's saying, I don't need love because I'm drugging myself up so that I don't have to feel my feelings, right? Watch my dreams getting crushed. It's really sad when you think about it, because it's like every time he was like, oh, I have a dream, I want to do this, it's just like, nope, not possible. And the only way he can it's like contrasting like real life dreams, because like we have like dreams of like, oh, I want a dream to be in this profession, or I want a dream to have a family, right? But we also have the dreams that are inside our head, and oftentimes those are very different than the dreams that we say when we're talking about, oh, I have a dream that I want my life to be this way. It's usually a good thing. You can't control your dreams that you have while you're asleep, right? But by doing a bunch of drugs, you can make it so there's no dreams, no feelings, no nothing. It's just nothing, right? Anyways, cold outside and I don't know what to wear. This is interesting because it's like, well, if it's cold outside, obviously you'd want to wear something warm. Why would you not know what you want to wear? Well, when he says it's cold outside, I don't think he's talking about the physical temperature. He's talking about the climate or of public discourse, or just like the atmosphere of everyone fighting, right? And this gets even more developed when we get into cold visions, because he's having visions of something that's pretty dark, you know. But we'll get to. Whew, that's gonna be a really long video when I do cold visions. Anyways, I don't get scared, but I get nightmares. This I very strongly empathize with. I can watch horror movie after horror movie after horror movie, right? And none of it scares me, you know. But except my nightmares. I have really weird dreams, right? I don't get scared IRL, but I have nightmares. I get freaked out by my dreams. So, again, he wants his dreams to go away, even the good ones, because there's bad ones as well. There's nightmares. So, I'm sure if he could choose, like when he went to sleep, if he could say, oh, I want to press the good dream button, I'm only going to have nice dreams. I'm sure everyone would want that. But no, the majority of the dreams that he has when he falls asleep are nightmares, so he watches his dreams getting crushed as he's doing drugs and suppressing his dreams, right? Very interesting stuff. I'm gonna bleed in the club. Again, he's talking about like a spiritual bleed, like he's in the club and he's like getting rid of his sins, his dark side of him, right? He's bleeding out his, you know, his bad habits, his bad routines, his past life decisions, you know. And when he watches his dreams getting crushed, it's good and bad, because it's crushing his good dreams, right? His dreams of whatever he wants to be as a person. But it's also crushing the nightmares, so now he doesn't have any more nightmares, right? Or he's trying to get rid of them. He says, I get nightmares, but the whole process of, you know, avoiding, you know, that with drugs, like, he's just going to get rid of them all. Lost my speed, now I'm slowing down. So it's like, if you take it from a drug context, it's like the uppers, or, you know, amphetamine, whatever he's taking, right? Like, that starts to slow down at night, and at night is when you're about to go to sleep, right? And if you're not married and you're going to sleep, who are you with? Nobody. That's why he says, I can't believe that I'm lonely now. You know, it's like the day is coming to a close. I can't feel anything inside. I couldn't breathe when you told me why. Like, when you told me, once I found out why things are the way they are in reality, it was so nerve-wracking, right? Once I bit from that fruit, that forbidden fruit, and I found out why, it's shocking, it's terrifying. It's not like, to realize that good and evil aren't distinct concepts, but are always in some ways intertwined. That's a scary thought, you know. And that's the epiphany or realization that Blade's coming to. Admit defeat, give away the crown, right? So even in this song, you know, in the earlier songs he was saying, I'm king of the material world, but he's not. You know, that's just like I guess it would be like an egotistical thing to say. He's king nothing. He's king of nothing. Okay? He's not even a king. He admits defeat and he gives away the crown to someone to the actual king, I would assume. If we don't speak, you can't let me down. Right. So if he's doing all this drugs, all this weed, yada yada, he doesn't have to converse with this higher power, right? This is how I view it. If you're viewing it from a relationship perspective, it's kind of like if if you start texting this girl or whatever, or or the other way around, um, or any romantic interest, like sometimes there's like that feeling of like, oh, I shouldn't call or text because I know she might reject me or say something I don't want to hear, so I'm just gonna be silent and live in like this limbo, you know, between having a relationship, not having a relationship, because I'm scared to see what the end result is gonna be when I give away my crown, when I let go um, of my preconceptions about how this relationship is going to go. Anyways, great song, Into Dust. Let's go into... Whew, really gotta start speeding it up. Yeah, let's go into To Be Loved. If you F around with blade, I will turn into a knife. Right? So, a knife, as far as I know, is something that only has one side sharp. Okay, so a blade would have two sides, a knife only has one. So he's saying, like, if you mess around with me, I'm not gonna like give you the benefit of the doubt or see things from your side. I'm just gonna stab with the side I'm assuming is good. So, interesting stuff. We don't play war, no fake swords. I got real sewers, put them to your sword. Blade likes to use this like medieval imagery along with modern imagery, at least early on. I'm sure he does it in other albums as well, but it was mainly like with the glue era into the glue and maybe Rainworld, and actually, a little bit with his new project, like Obsessed with Death and stuff like that, he brings up this medieval energy. I think it's real cool. And this is also where he first talks about sewers. Like, I got seal sewers. Okay, Blade says, I lived in the sewer, in decay. I was on so many drugs because I don't know what it's like to be loved. And this is interesting because I'm sure Blade has had people who have loved him in his life, but either they didn't tell him or he's talking about a different type of love, right? Because there's like the platonic love, and then there's like, love, which is like what you would see in like a relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, or maybe even with a higher power if you're thinking that way. In Hell Fairy Tale Realization, he's saying his life doesn't feel real. It feels like a fairy tale. He's having the realization that things aren't real. Dream life over real life. I ain't waiting. He's basically saying, like, I'm gonna do drugs so I can achieve paradise on earth, right? I'm gonna feel good all the time on earth. A lot of people reserve that for like heaven, they're like, oh, we have to work hard on earth, we have to go through trials, and the true happiness, the time we can let ourselves go is in heaven. Blade is saying, no, I'm going to do drugs right now on earth, and I value that life, dream life, over the real life. I ain't waiting. Easy to forget I was Jesus on her neck. He's relating himself to the chosen one, right? Jesus, or you know, the one who's supposed to save us from our sins, right? And so he says, easy to forget I was Jesus on her neck. Interesting line. I have everything you own because he's the king of material, the material king. He has everything that we own. But remember, he's got ghost hands, so it's not like he can change it. He has the same knowledge. He owns the same knowledge about good and evil that we all do. Right? He has everything we own. All right, next song. I think what I'm going to do, since this video is getting kind of long, is I'll do Rainworld in 2 parts. Okay. So I feel like this is a good place to end this part, is on commercial 0.2 live outro. Now this, to me, is one of Blade's most powerful songs he's ever written. At least maybe top 3. It's so hard. I mean, I rank every Blade song S tier, but let's dive in. Let me breathe on you, breathing. Okay, so he's showing that he's alive through his breath, right? That's the only way you can that's the best way you can show you're alive, is if you're breathing, because you could be dead, and like right as you're dead your muscle has a spasm or whatever, and like someone could animate your corpse, I guess, is kind of a dark thought I had. You could just like move your mouth, like Weekend at Bernie's kind of deal, but breathing is the truest way to know that something's alive. So he's saying, I'm alive, let me breathe on you. Breathing. I know what you mean, it has no true meaning. He sees both sides, right? This is loss and gain, right? This is the light side, the dark side, but it has no true meaning. How can he know what you mean, but say that it has no true meaning? Well, I think he's just saying what a lot of people do. A lot of people, they'll parrot opinions or reiterate opinions they have in their echo chamber of ideologies, whether it be a community, a cult, or whatever, a religion, all that. But it has no true meaning if you can't translate it, if you can't reach a summit of agreement, right? It doesn't matter what you mean. He knows what people mean. If there's people who are trying to tell him like how to live his life or what rules to live by. But it has no true meaning, because at the end of the day, and this is more like a philosophical thing, I guess, but if you have your, we all have our values and our beliefs and stuff like that, but once you start breaking them down to the core, like presuppositions of what you actually believe, it usually doesn't make sense. You're usually just saying like, oh, well, I feel that way because that's how I feel. I think this is wrong because I think this is wrong, And so Blade says all of this extra stuff that you add on top of that base presupposition is meaningless. Right? It doesn't really matter. Let's get to the base. Let's get to as real as we can. Why do we hold a particular belief? Why do we follow a particular ideology? Why do we view the world in a certain way? It's not all the stuff up here that we use to explain it all away. It's at the base. What is your presupposition? Are you a good person? Do you want to treat others the way they ought to be treated? See me in the club, I am bleeding. Again, this is, I guess maybe you could say when he says he's bleeding in the club, it's like a physical thing, like, but maybe he did too much of the booger sugar and like started bleeding out of his nose or whatever. But when I hear Blade say bleeding, and he uses this a lot, I'm always just thinking of the spiritual bleeding. It's like sweating out bad toxins. It's like sweating out your sins, your past, all that. Even I will get even. Okay? He's not trying to, the people who tell him how he should live their life, he's not trying to get rid of him or anything. He's just saying, okay, well, now I'm going to tell you how I live my life. And then I'll get even, all the bad juju that you're sending my way, that's really clouding your base presupposition, which you probably would agree with anyway, but all of this bullcrap that you're spewing, I'm also going to start spewing bullcrap to get even with you. So then at least we can meet each other on the same plane, on the same plateau. Something's always missing and it kills me. When he looks into this knowledge, this newfound knowledge that he has of good and evil, yada yada, there's something missing, right? Because we can't just rely on the knowledge alone. We need to have someone who can interpret that knowledge for us, right? And who is that? I don't know. Maybe it's Blade. Maybe there's no true interpretation, and so something's always going to be missing. There's always going to be a hole in the story, a plot hole. There's always going to be a disagreement with an ideology. Always going to be a contradiction in a religious context. Something's always missing, and it kills me. It kills me means like he can't take the fact that things aren't black and white, right? I am showing you the emptiness that fills me. Nothing is forever. Now, it says nothing is forever, but it could be. But I believe, if I'm remembering the song correctly, he says it twice, right, in this chorus. But it could also be nothing is forever, but it will be. Will and could, right? You hear both. Which one is it? If you say it will be, that means you have a faith that, like a belief without evidence that it will just be nothing forever once we die. But, or I'm sorry, nothing is forever, but it will be. In the future, when we go to heaven, or when we go to paradise, or when we go to our final resting place, something could be forever. It could be an eternal happiness. Or it will be an eternal happiness, depending on where you are in your faith journey. Trying to be different, but I'm still me. I think this kind of like alludes to the fact that like we want to hop out of our shell, as human beings, but the second we do that, people start looking at us like, oh, that's not normal you, and so they have to get used to the new you. But he's trying to say like, look, I'm different. I've gone through some stuff, but I'm still me. I'm still me. Anyways, I am going to... I didn't realize Rainworld was, great album. I'm not dissing on Rainworld. I didn't know it would take me this long. But I guess that'll be a good place to stop. I'll just put this as a part 1. And then I will work on part 2 probably tomorrow. So thanks for watching. And yeah, please leave, Do whatever you want, like, dislike, subscribe, but just, I would really want you to leave a comment if you felt like there's something I didn't explain super well that I could clarify better, or if you have your own ideas as to the meaning of these songs. This is just like my improv slash analysis after, I mean, I've heard these songs all hundreds of times. So, anyways, Drainism, peace.